Hi, this is Miss Litton, and this is my wonderful Period 3 AP biologist. Say hi.
Hi.
All right, and we're in Chapter 6, Metabolism, Energy, and Enzymes, and this is a little discussion about oxidation and reduction. And I want to tell you, dial this in, because this discussion right here sets you up for the next 2 chapters on photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And I'm going to have you start to put a couple of things together. And we'll understand both those reactions kind of in a nutshell. So here I'm showing this. The baton is getting handed off. And the reason why I use this as a model is the baton is everything, right, in the race? Okay? And these are just players in that race. And the baton for us is going to represent electrons. Because electrons, whoever holds the electrons is holding the energy. And we will see in the metabolic reactions that we look at in both photosynthesis and cellular respiration that it happens in a series of steps where electrons get handed from one maybe glucose, and they get handed to another molecule like NAD, and now NAD has the energy, and so on and so on. So when we talk about redox, when you have to do it at the same time, this is just a way to understand it, is substance A here has 2 electrons. So when they have the electrons, they have the energy. Now, when they pass their electrons to substance B now has the electrons or the energy. Substance B is classified as being reduced. So to understand the naming of that, what is the charge on an electron? Negative. So it got reduced in charge, but overall it gained energy. Okay? And at the same time that A was reducing B, when B got reduced, A became oxidized. Now, do you see any oxygen on this molecule? No. So let me explain the history behind that. I want you to think about, did I already do this analogy last time? I can't remember. Okay, I want you to think about your friends. Okay, are you thinking about your friends? Okay, do you have one of those like super loving, great, awesome friends who's like a giver? And like if you're like a little bit hungry and you forgot your lunch, they're like, oh, here, let me share. You need a ride? Here, let me do that for you. Okay? You're having a hard time and they're there for you and they're like, oh, I'm listening. Yes, and they really care. Okay, whoever that friend is, in your mind, take a Sharpie and put a big old H on their forehead. Have you got that? Aw, Max, you're a hydrogen. Nice. Okay? Now, do you have friends that are maybe not so much like that? So when you go to them with a story and you're like, meh, 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 and you have this sad story, and somehow they turn it around and make it all about themselves? Okay? You know what I'm saying? And then, remember this lecture is getting recorded, so don't say any names out loud. There's somebody who never packs a lunch and always wants to eat your food that you put together. They never give you a ride but always expect a ride. They want to illegally copy your homework because they didn't do their homework. So take that Sharpie and don't point, and put a big old O on their forehead because their name is oxygen. And oxygen is highly electronegative, so whenever you hook up with oxygen, you're going to lose something. You're going to lose some energy. You're going to lose some electrons. So that's referred to as getting oxidized, as losing that energy. They're sucking the life out of you. But when you hook up with hydrogen, hydrogen is the opposite. That they're giving friends. So if you bind with hydrogen, if she's hydrogen and we bind, she's going to be like, here, Miss Litton, here. Okay? She's my giving friend, and I'm going to gain energy through the process. So that's where reduced and oxidized comes from. So there's a couple different ways you can get reduced. You can hand me electrons, or I can hook up with hydrogen, or I can break up with oxygen. Now, think about how I can get oxidized. The obvious way of getting oxidized is hooking up with oxygen, but what would be another way to get oxidized? Breaking up with hydrogen, right? Or losing electrons. So whoever is reduced, they're the ones they have gained the energy, and whoever was oxidized, they have lost that energy. So can I please have oldest bio buddy just kind of run through this diagram real quick, explaining it. Okay, now, we have molecules in both cellular respiration and photosynthesis who will hang on to electrons temporarily. Okay, they're the go-between. It's kind of like if you write a check, right? If you write a check, it's on a piece of paper. It's not cash money. You can't feed it into the Coke machine and get a soda, right? But you could take it to the bank and you could cash it. So it is money. It's just not cash money. Okay? And the substance that we're going to use in cellular respiration is called NAD. And the one we use in photosynthesis is called NADP. You don't need to know the full name. It's like nicotinamide dinucleotide phosphate. You don't need to know the whole thing. Okay? But these are ones that will temporarily hold on to the electrons for us. So for instance, when we do cellular respiration, we're going to oxidize glucose. What does that mean? For oxidizing glucose, what could we be doing to it? It's getting rid of some of its electrons, right? Okay, so if it's losing its electrons, it's losing what else? Energy, right? We're going to temporarily give that energy to NAD. And NAD will hang on to those electrons for us, and it will become reduced. You might see a substance that's reduced written like this, but it could also be written like this, or it could be written like this. It's all going to mean basically the same thing. It's gained energy. Okay? For this, it could be written like this, or it could be written like this. Okay? That would be when it doesn't have the energy. Okay, so something, if he's getting reduced in this process, wherever these came from must have gotten what? Oxidized. And since it happens at the same time, you call it a redox reaction. Okay, could I please have now the youngest bio buddy? Is it your turn? Yeah. Youngest bio buddy, explain what's going on down here. All right, so let's test ourselves. Let's test ourselves. Tell me reduced or oxidized? Loses hydrogen. Do you agree? Oxidized? You have no clue? Let's think it out, Ori. Okay, so if I lose hydrogen, when I was with hydrogen, what would he give me? He's my good friend. He would give me electrons. He would give me energy. So if I lose hydrogen, I'm getting what? I've lost energy. I've become oxidized. Okay? Gains hydrogen? Reduced. Reduced. Gains electrons? Reduced. Gains or loses electrons? Oxidized. Gains oxygen? Oxidized. Loses oxygen? Loses energy. Gains energy. Okay, do you agree with this? Let's check. Yay! Okay, now let's look at your notes. Okay, so I'm in a different chapter. Let's look at these notes. Okay, so on oxidation, reduction reactions, and metabolism, reactions, redox reactions, electrons are transferred from one reactant to another. And then I gave you all the notes for what it means to be oxidized and what it means to be reduced. You want to make sure that you can understand that. Okay, and we just kind of went through that. And then oil rig is something that people have used. I don't, but I know people have. Oxidation is loss. Reduction is what? Gain, if you remember oil rig. All right. Now, let's take what we know about reduced and oxidized and use this to talk about both photosynthesis and cellular respiration. All right? So I want you to, they talk about following the money, right? In a crime or something, right? Follow the money. This time I want you to follow the energy. Okay? So here, follow the energy through. It's starting with the sun. And you're using energy from the sun here in a chloroplast. Okay? And you're going to take CO2 and water, and using energy from the sun, you're going to do what to that CO2? You're going to turn it into what? Glucose. What's the formula for glucose?
C6H12O6.
Good. What's another byproduct you get from that? What is that?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Okay, I want you to see something for a minute. Here's CO2 and here's water. What did we do to the CO2? What did we add to it? CO2. What did you add to it? Hydrogen. So what must you have done to the CO2? Think about it. It was carbon and oxygen. You reduced it. It was carbon and oxygen, but now it's what? Carbon and hydrogen and oxygen. So here in this chloroplast, we must reduce CO2. Are you with me on this? Get big picture. Okay, look at the water. It was hydrogen and oxygen, and now it's just what?
Oxygen.
It's just oxygen. So what did we do to the water?
Oxidized.
We oxidized. Okay, we oxidized the water. Okay, now hydrogens went from water to who? Carbon dioxide. That took some energy. Where did we get the energy to do that?
The sun.
From the sun. The big yellow one's the sun. Okay? Now let's see what the mitochondria does. Mitochondria takes this glucose and takes this oxygen. The byproduct, breathe in. There's your oxygen, breathe out. There's your CO2. That was your breakfast. You just exhaled your breakfast. Or last night's dinner. Okay? Because you're taking that C6H12O2 and what are you turning it into? CO2. What did you do to the glucose? It went from carbon, hydrogen, oxygen to just carbon and oxygen. What did you do to the glucose? You oxidized it. You burned it. And you burned it in the presence of oxygen. Right? Okay? So the oxygen became what? H2O. What did you do to the water? You reduced it. Okay? Wrap your brain, wrap your brain. Whereas the sun's energy is a reactant in this process, right? Follow the energy. If we're going to do cellular respiration, then energy must not be a reactant because it's opposite day. It must be a product. What is that energy called?
ATP.
ATP, baby. Okay, do you see how it's all kind of interconnected? Not it.
Not it.
Pass or play. Go.
Oh, that's okay, carbon dioxide, oxidized
Hey, other bio buddy, how are these reactions similar? How are these reactions different? Go ahead, other bio buddy. Which reaction is endergonic overall? Which reaction is exergonic overall? Photosynthesis is what? Endergonic, right? Endergonic, because we're putting energy into our product. Our delta G is going to be positive. Aerobic respiration is exergonic. Our delta G is going to be negative. Okay? Now, take a look at this. If I go the top way, I'm doing photosynthesis. If I go from right to left, look at the bottom arrow, I'm doing what process? Cellular respiration. Good. So let's do photosynthesis first. Where is this energy coming from?
Sun.
The sun. So this is energy from the sun. And you know, because we've already done it, this CO2 is becoming this glucose. And this water is becoming this oxygen. What happened to the CO2? Did it get reduced or oxidized? It got reduced. Give evidence, blue. How do you know it got reduced?
Because the O2.
Okay, so you said it got reduced because why? Yeah, it gained a hydrogen. Okay, and then I would say to you, I would say these hydrogens that are here are where? See them? I'm curious. 6 waters, 6 H2O, 2 times 6 is 12. 12. Okay. Now, okay, what happened to the water? It got what?
Oxidized.
It got oxidized. Okay. Overall, you put energy into this, so what kind of reaction is it? It's endergonic reaction because the energy is going in. Endergonic. Good. All right. Now, let's go the other way now. Let's do cellular respiration. In cellular respiration, this glucose is becoming what? What is it becoming? Carbon dioxide. Here it goes. Okay, and what's the oxygen becoming? Water. Good. Okay, what happened to the oxygen? It got reduced. What happened to this glucose? It got oxidized. Okay, now, since our end product, what is our end product when we do cellular respiration? Name it. ATP. Okay, it's ATP. Since we're getting it out as a product overall, what kind of reaction is this? Exergonic. Okay, now where does cellular respiration occur? In the mitochondria. Yes, that's right. Where does photosynthesis occur? In the chloroplast. All right. Now, what is? Oh, I'm not done yet. You might want more. Remember, I talked to you about energy transfer molecules. Yes. Okay. And the one there's NAD and NADP. NADP is used in plants. You're going to remember that because NADP. Okay, in photosynthesis. So your energy transfer molecule that you use when you do photosynthesis is called NADP. And here's what happens. Your hydrogens here in the water, when you get split, it gets temporarily given to NADP, so it's NADP what? Reduced. And then it gives these hydrogens right here. Meh. It gives those hydrogens right here to the CO2 to make it glucose. Once it gives those up, then it's just going to be what? NADP what? Oxidized. Once it gives it up, and it can be reused again, and it just cycles around and around and around. So your energy transfer molecule for photosynthesis is NADP. You do for cellular respiration, what you use is you use NAD. And here you use NADP. Okay? So if you understand the big picture, then all the little steps that you are doing, you're supporting and it makes sense to you. Like overall, what are you trying to do? It decreases the memorization and increases the understanding. Now, who does cellular respiration? All cells. Tell me, who does it? All cells. Okay? all cells are going to be doing the cellular respiration. Who does photosynthesis? Plants. What would be another name I could use instead of plants? Autotrophs. So it would be another name I could use. Photoautotrophs, right? They're going to be doing that. Now, are plants also going to be doing cellular respiration? Yes, because who does cellular respiration? All cells. Okay, we got that part? Okay, not it.
Not it.
Somebody give a play. Talk about that. Run through it.
I said not it. Do you understand?
So when it's when it's
Yes. Slightly different in structure. Oh, NAD with a plus is oxidized. Yeah, anything with a hydrogen on it is reduced. Okay, so let's look at your notes on that part. Make sure we understand this. Okay, chloroplasts and photosynthesis. Chloroplasts and photosynthesis. Chloroplasts capture what kind of energy? Solar, yeah. Solar energy and convert it into chemical energy. Solar energy and convert it into chemical energy. Initially, ATP, I'll explain this part, and reduced NADP is formed. I'll explain that ATP part in just a second. These molecules are used to reduce carbon dioxide into what? Glucose. The electron transfer molecule is what? Say my name, say my name. What is the transfer molecule we use? NADP. Good. Mitochondria and cellular respiration. Glucose gets what? Oxidized into carbon dioxide. ATP molecules are produced. And the electron transfer molecule is NAD. So we're going to talk about how these molecules get produced. Okay, so this is the part that period 1 wanted you to film. Are you ready? I don't know what that is. I don't know. I'm going to work off this middle row here. So whatever angle allows you to see up and down that middle row.
Dude, I swear, if you film it,
Are you threatening him in some way? Okay.
It's a very hollow.
All right. So here, I'll tell you when to start. Okay. Okay, so are we good? Okay, so what we're going to film right now is trying to understand an electron transport chain, which in the songs you're going to learn a little bit later goes like this. Na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. And when we learned in metabolic reactions that things get broken down in many small steps, this is what we're going to model right here. You are a membrane, okay? I am a molecule that has 2 electrons attached to me. I just got them. Am I reduced or am I oxidized? I'm reduced. I am now going to pass them to an electron acceptor in this membrane, okay? She just got what? Oxidized. No, she just got reduced, and I just got oxidized. She is going to pass them to the next member on the chain, and she just got reduced, and she just got oxidized. Now, while she is reduced, she has superpowers, and she's like, no, because she has what? What does she have? Energy. She is going to take her superpowers, and she's going to grab a hydrogen from that side of the membrane and put it on this side of the membrane. Think. She is taking a hydrogen from this side and concentrating it on this side. You remember what I'm talking about? Okay, now she's going to pass again. She just got what? Oxidized, and she just got reduced. This is like hot potato. Okay, it starts out with the most energy here, and every time we pass it, we have a little less energy. Okay, and again, be superpower. And flip a hydrogen. Yay! Okay, now, the thing is, up comes another high energy set of electrons, and up comes another high energy set. Flip it over there. Now, you can only hold 2 electrons at a time, and you can't set them down. So let's keep going, and let's see what happens. Good job, superpowers. You can only hold 2. Uh-oh, you can't hold 4. What's going on, electron transport? All right, now, couple things I want to point out. Okay, good job, electrons. So let's talk about this just for a minute. We have been concentrating hydrogen ions to this side of the membrane. Do you agree with that? Yes. Can we do something with that? Is that potential energy? Yes. Yes, right? Because we have just made a chemiosmotic gradient. That's a difference in what? Difference in what? pH, concentration, and charge. So now, this concentration of hydrogen ions, it's like we're trying to get into Disneyland, okay, right? So all these hydrogens are here, and we need to go through a turnstile to get into Disneyland. So they are wanting. Finally, the light is green. When they go through that turnstile, they're like, yay, and they come inside. When they go, yay, and they come inside, they snap a phosphate onto ADP, making it ATP. I am coupling 2 reactions here. I am coupling an electron transport chain with the synthesis of what? ATP. Now, let's talk photosynthesis for a minute. I told you this is the highest amount of energy right here, yeah? How did these electrons jump to a higher energy level so we could even start this bad boy right here? Energy from the sun excited the electrons so they could go so we could make some ATP, but we're not done. Okay? I need to end up, I want this chain to keep going, so I need an electron acceptor right here. Here is the electron acceptor. I am NADP, and I just became reduced NADP. Are you bringing it? Are you bringing it? I'm going to take these electrons, and I'm going to go right here to some CO2, and I'm going to give these electrons to CO2 multiple times, and what am I going to make? Glucose. Okay. All right, we're good, thank you. All right, so to keep this chain going, that's what's going to happen. Okay, good job, you guys. Give them a hand. They were excellent electron transfer. Perfect. Okay. Let's see, you two. This is going to take a while, so I want to get it started while I have battery. Electron transport chain. Chemiosmotic.
Oh yeah,
I'll fix it later. Electron transport chain. That'll be good for now. Okay. 0% uploaded. All right. Look at this right here. Okay. Oh yeah, we're still recording here. Okay. So this is your na. So you're starting out high energy here, and as it goes lower, you're using this to harvest in order to make some what? ATP. So let's take a look. Whoever explained this picture, you know who you are, right? I want the other bio buddy to explain this picture right here. Okay? This is called ATP synthase complex. This hydrogens are going this way in this picture and the other direction here. Go ahead, give it a go. All right, so these hydrogens come back to me. We're using, it's not showing you all the acceptors here. It's just showing you this one. And this one superpower who's going, and taking hydrogen ions and concentrating them to one side of the membrane. Those will accumulate when they move to the other side of the membrane. That's when you will synthesize ATP. Where is this occurring? In the mitochondria and also in the chloroplast. For different purposes, ultimately you're going to get ATP. Okay, but the beauty of this whole thing is these two reactions are almost opposite. In photosynthesis, this happens first. In cellular respiration, this happens last. Okay, so we'll talk about the similarities and differences in just a minute. Go ahead.
Would you mind explaining the diagram?
Yes. Okay, so what happens is they're not showing you, like we had several carriers here where we were passing that the electrons along.
Yeah.
But right here is the one that's able to take that energy. When they're holding those electrons, they have a little more energy. They're able to take this hydrogen ion, concentrate it to one side of the membrane. So every time they get electrons coming their way, they're flipping a hydrogen over to one side. As they accumulate here, this is the turnstile, where they want to come back in. And when they do that, that is when you synthesize ATP. So you are coupling an electron transport chain with the synthesis of ATP. Okay?
Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, so go to your notes. Electron transport chain and ATP production. High energy electrons are delivered to the system and low energy electrons leave. It's a series of redox reactions. Every time electrons transfer to a new carrier, energy is released to pump hydrogen ions to one side of a membrane. Pump hydrogen ions to one side of a membrane. Yes?
So I know you said that once the hydrogen ions come back in, that's when the ATP is made.
Yes.
But how? I think John was saying that phosphate comes with the hydrogen, but can you explain how the coming in of hydrogen ions makes ATP?
Oh, okay. Because you have here, that's this next part. So let me finish and then we'll see if we answer that question. An electrode, so you're pumping the hydrogen ions, and so you establish an electrochemical gradient. Okay? And you have a difference in what? Concentration. What else? pH and charge. Add that to number 3. So it's not just like, remember when we talked about hypertonic, hypotonic, you want to go from a higher concentration to a lower concentration? It's not just concentration. It's not just that you have more hydrogens on this side of the membrane, just like you could have more water on one side of a membrane or more salt or sugar on one side, right? It's not just that you even have more hydrogens. There's a difference in pH as well, because wherever you have a lot of hydrogen ions, you're going to have a lower pH, right? And it's a difference in charge as well, because these are hydrogen ions. What have they lost? An electron. So now you have more pluses over here, as well as more H's, as well as a low pH. So this difference really makes them want to migrate to the other side of the membrane. And that difference, that's when they go through that turnstile, and they think of it like a turnstile where it's, snapping. It takes the power of that, like a dam. When you let the water go through, you can harvest that energy to make electricity, right? So you're harvesting that energy when it goes through in order to put a phosphate on ADP to make it ATP. Now, hang on one second. This is called chemiosmotic synthesis of ATP, where you use an electrochemical gradient to make it. There's also something called substrate level phosphorylation, where one molecule who has a phosphate hands it to another molecule who doesn't. Usually an enzyme is going to catalyze that, but that's another way you can make ATP. This isn't the only way to make ATP. Go ahead.
So the ADP is already there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Phosphate added to the-
Yeah. Yeah, always there. Okay, so now, did I do number 4? Carrier proteins allow hydrogen ions to flow down their concentration gradient, and this energy is used to synthesize ATP. To synthesize ATP. See if you can grasp this. I focused our discussion just a second ago on photosynthesis, but let's apply this to cellular respiration. In cellular respiration, we take, we take glucose right here, right? Taking glucose. And what do I do to that glucose? I'm whatting it? I'm oxidizing that glucose. What does that mean? What am I doing to that energy? Stop eating in class. What am I doing to that energy? I'm releasing it, right? Okay? Because I'm oxidizing that glucose. Who am I giving that energy to temporarily? NAD. So at the end of cellular respiration, all the NADs who got the electrons from the glucose, they're high energy. So we don't use the sun, right, to do cellular respiration. We get high energy electrons because we took it from glucose. And now NADs drop their electrons off at the top of the chain. Okay? Now capture this for a minute. Okay? Go, 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 go. Right? And there we go. Good. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I want to show you something. Do you see how she's going like this? Because it's opposite day. Which way is she going to go? That way. Yeah, you'll see that when we learn it. Okay? But I just want to... Okay, good, good, good. Now, are you ready for this? At the bottom of the electron transport chain, because now our chain's stuck, right? We can't move any more hydrogen ions. If we can't move any more hydrogen ions, what can't we synthesize? ATP. What will happen to us? We will die. And this is why, then, think about what do you have to do every second of every moment you live? Breathe. Oxygen is the final electron acceptor. Taking 2 electrons and the hydrogens that are around, what did I just form? Agua. Exactly. I formed water. My chain keeps moving now. Keep going, chain. I keep pumping hydrogen ions, and I keep synthesizing what? ATP. If you had no oxygen, you would not have a final electron acceptor. No final electron acceptor, your chain freezes, so you can't make any more ATP, and you will die. Okay? That's why oxygen is so important. Okay? That's why oxygen is so important. Yes?
So is NAD used in oxidation, or is it the result of oxidation?
NAD reduced is formed. Reduced NAD is formed as a result of oxidizing the glucose. Oxidize the glucose, reduce the NAD. Gather all your reduced NADs, and there's another substance called FAD, and take it to the top of the ETC, electron transport chain. And you make some ATP. A lot of it, a lot of it, a lot of it. Who catches electrons at the bottom? Oxygen forming water. There's some songs to teach you. Okay, got that? All right, you're going to do water. Now, here is a question for you. This one is a tricky question and annoying, but see if you can still do it. Remember, if it has a plus on it, is it oxidized or reduced? If it has a plus on it, is it oxidized or reduced? Remember, if it's reduced, it has an H or H2 or little r, little e for being reduced. If it's oxidized, it has a plus sign or an OS, right? Can you oxidize something that has already been oxidized? No. Any more than you can reduce something that's already been reduced. You can't. It's in a state. It's either on or off. You can't turn something more off, right? It's either on or off. It's either reduced or oxidized. Hey, you guys, anybody on tennis? Because it's canceled today. Tennis is canceled, I'm assuming, because of the heat.
Yeah, that's what we're still learning tennis sport. The last time I went,
oh my gosh, we got some eyebrow movement in our video. It's kind of hilarious. I think I have to make it public, and it's not public yet. I don't know how to do that on my phone. Edit. Okay, everybody finished? Oh, it is public. Oh. Michael Goldberg.
we only got 4.
4 of us. So let's talk about it. I told you it's tricky. It's tricky. I told you it's tricky. Okay, oxidation, is it the opposite of reduction? Yes. Okay. Sometimes uses NAD plus. No, you can't oxidize something that's already what? Oxidized. If it was NAD reduced, then you could say that. Check with your biobuddy, make sure they understand that. I can't oxidize something that's already oxidized. Okay? Is oxidation involved in cellular respiration? Yes. Does it occur when ATP goes to ADP and phosphate? No. These are totally different things. Being reduced and oxidized, okay, and whether or not you're ATP or ADP, that's different. Okay? That's the state of electrons. You don't refer to ADP, ATP getting oxidized or reduced. That's, do you have a phosphate group or do you not have a phosphate group? Yes?
What is NAD?
NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's just a compound that can temporarily hold electrons. Yes. All right, let's try another one. I think. So if I said I have oxygen, would I say it had been or And it, compared to water, which is, you would say it's been I hope you know what the are.
Oh yeah, C. So
C.
Oh, better. Go, Zach. Oh, Michael, is that disappointing just a little bit? Okay, now, O2 got what? Oxidized, whereas water, which is? Reduced. The end. Okay, so let's open up chapter 7, group shared notes. Hope you're having a great day.